Have you ever been in a situation in which something went not according to plan? Or have you ever been in a situation, these are all rhetorical questions because I know we all have them, but have you ever been in a situation where you do something and you expect a certain result and the complete opposite result happens? I know there have been times in my life where maybe you're getting really ready for that one meal at your favorite restaurant. You know, and you've been craving this for a week. And you thought, okay, I'm going to wait until payday. I'm going to get to go out to this restaurant. And I'm going to get my favorite meal when I get there. So you do. You wait until Friday, paycheck's in the bank already. And then you go to this favorite restaurant and you order what you've been dreaming about all week. And maybe it's undercooked. Or maybe there's something about it that's not perfect and it just disappoints you. And you've been waiting all this time. And you're like, I deserve my meal that's exactly the way I imagined it, exactly the way I hoped it would be, exactly the way that I had been dreaming about for this whole week. And you're just so disappointed because it was not the way you wanted. Or maybe you go to that restaurant and everything is great with the food, but it takes like an hour to get your food. Don't you just hate that? Isn't that the worst? People dying over across the world are like, I had to wait an extra 20 minutes? No, come on. I hate that. I can't explain it. It's just like you get ready for something. Let me turn around and on the opposite of the coin, Ben, and let's say you're going in and you're doing something you've been dreading doing. And you have been putting it off, and then it finally comes to the point where you can't wait any longer. Maybe it's something at work, and it's that one person that you need to talk to, or that one situation that you need to take care of. And you cannot physically make yourself do it until the very last minute. And then has this ever happened? You dread it because you know it's going to be a negative experience. And then whenever you actually enter into this experience, actually it works out rather well. Maybe we wish for that to happen, or maybe that doesn't happen as often as we had hoped, but there are always those situations where things are not as bad as you think they are, or things are not as good as you think they are going to be. Have you ever been in a situation where you just kind of were told to do something at work or somewhere, and you just kind of put half effort into it? You're like, I'm just trying to it's Friday, come on, It seems like when we put the half effort into stuff, it's either Monday or Friday, right? Monday because we were just enjoying the weekend, or Friday because the weekend's coming. And then there's Tuesday, it's like, who likes Tuesday? And then there's Wednesday, it's the middle of the week, might as well put half effort into that. And then Thursday you put full effort in, and then there's Friday. And then there's Friday. Anybody else? No? Okay. But we know what I'm talking about, right? Whether something's good and we're really excited about something, it doesn't turn out the way we had hoped, or the opposite. Just a few months ago, actually I can't remember exactly when it was, we love indoor water parks, our family. And we're going to this indoor water park, and we drive like 5 hours to get there, 4 hours to get there, sorry, my wife is correcting me back. 4 hours, walking uphill both ways, no, I'm kidding. We go there, and this place is amazing. And we're ready for it. And we've been planning for this for so long. But the problem was, we go there, and all of us have had some sort of sickness over the last few weeks, and our daughter was currently sick. And we're like, we are going to enjoy this if we have to force enjoyment on everybody, I don't know if you've ever been in one of those situations. But, we went there and we had a good time, but maybe we could have had a better time if it wasn't for the sickness that was going around, Now, by the way, that was the time period in which the whole church was decimated with whatever was going on, and we just told everyone to stay home, if you remember back then. But sometimes things don't work out the way that we had hoped. What?
It's like a month ago.
That's a month ago. Okay, so 6 years ago, no, a month ago. So things do not go the way that we plan sometimes. It's just the way it is. I can remember as a church this one particular instance where we had this fundraising party that we were going to be doing. And we put these yard signs all over the city, and we were excited about it. It was going to be great, wonderful theming, wonderful structure. Everything was great. And then it comes to the day of, and we realize that the city had not given us permission to put out those yard signs, so all of them were taken out. And so we were upset about that, and this was like the first year that we did anything with the church, and nobody actually ended up showing up because nobody knew about it, and we're trying to get things started. Sometimes things don't work the way we planned. We have been talking all month about Jonah, and Jonah was a guy who God had asked him to go preach to Nineveh. Tell them that they're going to be destroyed. They've been living and just basking in their sin. It's as if it was one with them. Nineveh was a place of great violence, gambling, prostitution. It was a place that we did not want to go. Jonah had no business being there, and he hated those people. So what happens is he jumps into this boat. He goes the opposite direction. And God creates a storm that tosses this boat around the seas. This boat was tossed so violently that the people that he was riding with were going around frantically. Whose God do we need to pray to? Anybody, pray to your God. I don't care if you just made him up. Just pray to him. They're panicking. And then finally they see Jonah sleeping at the bottom of the boat. And they say, well, why aren't you praying to your God? Everyone has a God. Let's pray to it. And he admits to them, yeah, it actually is the one true God, the maker of heaven and earth, the maker of the sea and the land. He's the one causing this, and he's the one that I pray to. And I'm going to put this little paraphrase in there. And right now we're not speaking with one another, That was the context. And he says, if you want this to stop, just go ahead and throw me overboard. You see, Jonah was willing to sacrifice his own life so that he didn't have to do what God was asking him to do. He hated these people so much. So they threw him overboard. And Jonah probably thought, oh, I get to be released from this. But no, a big fish came and swallowed him up. And maybe right as the fish was coming, he thought, okay, well, this is a different way than I expected. But at least I'll be gone. And I don't have to deal with this anymore. Oh, but no. What we see from last week was at the end of that chapter, after this prayer of, oh God, get me out of this belly of this fish. I will do anything. I will go and I'll sacrifice to you if you just get me out. Well, the unexpected happened, and Jonah, thinking that he was going to be digested, actually ended up being spit out onto dry land. So now Jonah has a problem. He's made all these promises to God inside the belly of the fish. Now he has to actually do what he said he's going to do. I'll pray to you. I'll talk to Nineveh. I'll do anything. Spit him out. And here we are. So now we're in a situation where Jonah is walking towards Nineveh. And his thoughts, I can only imagine, go like this. Well, they're not going to listen. I mean, these are the worst people ever. I can't imagine that God is asking me to go preach to them. They need to be destroyed. God says they're going to be destroyed here in 40 days. They need to be because they're the most evil people. They're not going to listen to anything I'm saying. In fact, I'm probably going to be harmed for even walking in there. So this is the thoughts that are probably going through Jonah's head at this time. And then we get to chapter 3 here, where Jonah's actually walking in to Nineveh. And things take a turn. They take a turn. Let me just put it that way. Turn of the unexpected. We're in Jonah chapter 3. He's just been spit out on the dry land. And here he has another conversation with God. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. He's saying, hey, do you remember what you promised me? Now it's time. Verse 3. Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord and went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very important city. A visit required 3 days. On the first day, Jonah started into the city. He proclaimed 40 more days and Nineveh will be overturned. The Ninevites believed God. They declared a fast, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. When the news reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his royal robes, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat down in the dust. Then he issued a proclamation to Nineveh. By the decree of the king and his nobles, do not let any man or beast, herd or flock taste anything. Do not let them eat or drink, but let man and beast be covered with sackcloth. Let everyone call urgently on God. Let them give up their evil ways and their violence. Who knows? God may yet relent, and with compassion turn from his fierce anger so that we will not perish. When God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he had compassion and did not bring about upon them the destruction he had threatened. Jonah was walking into this context, into this city. This huge city that in other translations it says it takes 3 days to walk across Nineveh. Huge city. Lots and lots of people, lots of marketplace things going on, lots of illicit things going on. You can only imagine. He's walking to this and he says, okay, God, I am going to say exactly what you asked me to do. No more, no less. And when I get in there, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to leave. See, Jonah was walking into this city already anticipating the destruction. Perhaps he felt kind of inferior, or superior rather. He felt superior walking in there. Well, these people are not going to do anything that God is asking them to do. Might as well just go ahead and say it, leave. He didn't want to go too far into the city because then he couldn't get out in time before he was attacked. So he went 1 day's worth into Nineveh. You know, not exactly center, but pretty close. And instead of Jonah going on this big tangent about how good God is, turn to him, he loves you, he wants to save you, he walks in and he says this phrase, you're all going to be destroyed in 40 days. Thank you. You know, that was all he said. And in your right mind, sitting there in the pews, how would you have received that? I think if it were not God directing my mind, I would say, okay, well, what was that? You know. And my first thought would have been, oh, you must be the guy who's the scout for whatever army is coming. Let's get him. Jonah walks in, bare minimum. God is going to destroy you in 40 days. Have a good day. Where's my hotel? Is there? You have a burger around here? I'm famished.
Point me toward the Denny's.
I just got spit out by a fish. And by the way, you guys are going to be destroyed. I think if you were to tell me this whole story, I'd be like, no, wait a minute. You mean to tell me, let me make sure I get this right. You mean to tell me that we're going to be destroyed, and by the way, you don't smell too good. This guy, can you imagine the scene? I mean, picture this with me. This is a complete tangent, but just picture with me for a second. Yeah. Picture this. This guy covered in guts and just smelling, and he's the one that's walking into Nineveh, to these people that he hated, to the people that didn't deserve his time according to him, to the people that God was going to destroy, let's write them off. I mean, they don't mean anything to me. So he's coming in there, disheveled, stinking, covered, and he walks in there, this crazy looking guy, saying, by the way, God's going to destroy you in 40 days. Well, that's nice. I think if I were been in the audience, I would say, okay, that's fine. What is this guy talking about? But by the providence of the Holy Spirit, something amazing happens. God infiltrates their hearts. And a message that would be impossible for them to hear, their hearts were softened in a way that it just opened up to them. God was able to get through to them just by Jonah doing exactly what he was asked to do. Basically, God was talking to Jonah, just do what I'm saying, and I'll take care of the rest. Don't worry about the logistics. Don't worry how people are going to receive it. Don't soften it up. Don't sugarcoat it. Go in there and just tell them that they're going to be destroyed. I got the rest. You see, God knew that Jonah's heart was not in the right place to deliver the message of grace and mercy. He knew that Jonah's heart and mind were not in the right place to deliver the fullness of God to these people. So he says, I'll use you for the starter of the conversation. And even though your heart is not in the right place, even though you hate these people, even though all of these things are a fact, I'm still going to use you just as long as you take the first step with me. But maybe God will also turn his heart as well. You've got to think about the surprise on Jonah's face. Are you picturing it? When all he said was this quick little phrase, they're going to be destroyed. And then all of a sudden, a wave of God's Spirit comes over everybody. To the point where the king over Nineveh declared a fast for everyone. What would happen if you went to one of your friends right now and just said, hey, by the way, God's not happy with something you're doing, and then you just walked out? Probably a lot of the times it would be like, what are you talking about? And for me, if someone said that to me, my automatic defense mechanism would be to try to justify my behavior. If you came and said, I think that you're sinning right now by your attitude, by something you're doing, I'd be like, well, hold on a minute. Listen here, Mr. Judgmental. I'm a pastor. I do no wrong. Okay. I didn't do nothing. Amen? Someone help me here, okay? You have a sinful, yeah, I know. Just digging. Okay, you have a sinful attitude, or, the way that you talk to your children the other day, so you have someone come up to you and call you out on your sin, and your first initial, idea is to try to defend your actions. Well, I was in the right. I was right, wasn't I? So, instead of doing that, the king put sackcloth on. He's mourning over the sin that he has been involved in. He's mourning over the sin that he's allowed his city to be a part of. And what he decrees is something that is very, very powerful. He says, let's fast. Let's deny ourselves of sustenance. And let's repent. It's interesting because the word repent actually literally means to turn the other direction. That's what that word means at its root. So if I'm involved in something over here, if I'm repenting of that, I'm actually going to be involved in something over here instead. It's a replacement of that which I was involved in. So the physical action of turning your back on the sin is what this king is talking about. This king is preaching more gospel than Jonah was.
Yep. Right.
The king, knowing nothing about the grace and mercy of God, by the way, and the king has had no time to go to seminary school. The king has not read all scriptures available to them at the time. He just heard the truth, and the truth set him free.
Yep.
So look what happens. Because of his heart, the entire city has turned their back on sin. And look what happens with Jonah. His heart didn't change. Jonah turned his back and walked out of the city. There's two contrasting stories happening here at the exact same time. Jonah was so deep in the city, and he turned his back on it. The city was so deep in sin, and the good part is they turned their back on that. So he sent out a decree. Everyone needs to fast, put sackcloth, and sackcloth was just a symbolic, mournful cloth that they would put on any time that they were repenting. It was cultural. And, I want everyone to do it. I want you to put it on your animals. I mean, this guy wasn't like high-grade theological scholar or anything like that. So he's like, if it moves, put a sackcloth on it. If it eats, don't let it. I mean, we need to get this figured out, folks. And if we don't get it figured out, we're going to be destroyed. But there's something very interesting that this king says. Not knowing much about God, there was something that he kind of knew. And he says it at the end of his decree. Who knows? And this is exactly how he says it. Who knows? God may yet relent, and with compassion turn from his fierce anger, so that we will not perish. I kind of feel like he's saying that, kind of nudging God with his elbow. Like, hey, who knows? You hear me? Could you just not destroy us? That'd be great. So, we have God here at the end of this particular chapter, who is, by the way, a God who responds to our cries. Did you notice that? He is not, okay, we get this idea in our heads that God is a God who doesn't care about us. We say out loud that he does, but he's a God who lives millions of miles away, somewhere in the cosmos. And maybe he hears our prayers, maybe he doesn't. And if he does, he just kind of lets things go the way that they go. God is a God who responds. He's not a God who got things started at the beginning of creation and just kind of stepped back. He is a God who responds to our prayers.
Amen.
He interacts with us. So what happens here is after all of this is taken care of, after the king has put out the decree, people are coming to him by the droves. Big city, lots and lots of people, highly populated. This word is getting out very quickly. It shows what God's response is. When God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he had compassion. It did not bring upon them the destruction he had threatened. But wait a minute. God said he was going to destroy them. But then he didn't. Does that mean God's lying? No. It means that God is showing them the natural byproduct of sin is death.
Right.
But repentance is life. He's saying if you continue to live in your sin, that's just naturally leading down a particular path. But if you do repent of your sin, if you do call upon my name, I am just. I am merciful. Grace is who he is. He is not filled with grace. He is grace. He is not loving. He is love. He is not merciful. He is mercy. If he wasn't any of those things, we would not be sitting here today. We we would have been obliterated, second flood, all that kind of thing. Jonah came in, delivered the message he was asked to deliver. The message was very simple, kind of, half put together, to be honest with you, but that's what he was told to say. He didn't preach on, hey, I'll give you some time, or like if you want to, maybe. He didn't say any of those kind of words. He just said you're going to be destroyed. He delivered the truth about their sin, where they were living, what they were doing. And the truth did not send them away going, well, that was kind of mean. How can he be so judgmental? Instead, the truth set them free. The amazing thing about this story is the king didn't go and say, okay, I'll think about it. I'm going to go ahead and meet with my cabinet or my other leaders. Immediately. It says immediately. When the news reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne. It was almost like he was already prepared. Like God had already been stirring. Like God was laying a foundation there. So, we see what happens. The thing I think we need to get out of this, if we get nothing else, is that there is no one too far from God's salvation. And if we were to add a second thing, it is that our obedience can lead there. What if God is waiting on us to just say yes to Him? That we can be a powerful tool of bringing the gospel to someone who is in desperate need of freedom from captivity. What if we've been putting something off for so long, we don't want to do it? Man, I don't want to talk to that person about Jesus. Look how they live. Man, you're thinking about it backwards. Sometimes we think that the only people who deserve Jesus are the people who already have Jesus. Or the people who don't disagree with Scripture. Those people need Jesus too. And we all need Jesus, no matter how long we've known Him. We go into our lives and God's call on our lives, we say, well, I'm going to get the low-hanging fruit, but God asks us to go all the way to the top of the tree. Every single life is valuable to Him. So where does that put us? It puts us in this struggle, this tug-of-war of flesh and spirit. It puts us in this battle between what I want to do and what I know I should. Where are we at in that spectrum? What you have noticed probably, if you've been a Christian for any amount of time, is that when you do what God asks you to do, it always works out well. He always blesses. It's not always comfortable, but He always blesses. So why are we refusing to do some of the things that God asks us to do? Even though we have a history of saying yes and it working out very well. Well, it's because we think of Paul, for instance, in the New Testament. Well, he was preaching, doing exactly what God said, but he was thrown in prison, a handful of times. Well, I can tell you that God sustained him in that. God gave him joy when joy shouldn't have been there. God provided for his needs by people giving money all over the world to help him to be sustained. Was he always comfortable? Of course not. But God was always there with him. So what is it that God has been stirring in your heart lately? That you have, instead of saying yes, covered up with the busyness of your life? What is it that God has been pulling you, tug of war? What is He fighting with you about? What is he wrestling? Sometimes we don't think of God that way. We often think of God in the terms of like, well, he wouldn't ask me to do it if I didn't want to. Right. You keep thinking that. If we do continue to think that, we will never see his abundance played out in our lives. At this time, the altars are open. If you have some business to do with God, we're going to sing and reflect. But after we sing, I'm going to meet you back in prayer.